We have to warn you here, what you're about to see is very graphic.
Oh, but this horrible crime never went before a judge or a jury, and we believe it is important for you to hear the truth about what really happened inside that house between those twins and their mother. Katie?
Well, DeMarco, through open records request, 11 Alive has obtained critical evidence that never made it into a courtroom. Crime scene photos, interrogation tapes, surveillance video, and finally the twins' taped confessions.
Good day, everyone. Welcome and welcome back to my channel, The Mysterious Black Bandit. Before we get started, I want to thank every one of you guys for your support and helping me grow this channel. I don't care what nobody else says, you guys are truly the best supporters on YouTube. I ran a poll the other day to see what genre you guys were most interested in, and it looks like true crimes took the cake. Now, I'm not going to completely stop doing the other videos, but I will start putting out more true crimes than the others. Oh yeah, and thank you guys so much for waiting on me while I recovered from this sinus surgery. I'm still healing up, but I'm able to talk better now. Alright, I hate I have to do this every video, but if you guys don't mind, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn your notification bell on to receive all new content when I upload. Alright, now that that's out the way, let's jump into this thing. In today's video, we'll be talking about the double trouble evil twins, Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah Whitehead. Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah were both born on November 27, 1993, to their mother, Jarmecca Yvonne Whitehead, who also went by Nikki, and to their Jamaican national father. At the time the twins were born, Nikki was only 18 years old and was living with her grandmother, Della Frazier, who also raised her. Right from the start, Nikki noticed how the twins were inseparable and were very smart and clever little girls. She tried her best to nurture their talents and gave them just about everything they wanted. She had them in singing and dancing lessons at an early age and even had them playing musical instruments. But from what her grandmother said, that wasn't the truth. She stated that Nikki was always on the go and stayed away for days sometimes. And before she was pregnant, Nikki was already involved with the wrong people. So as soon as the twins were born, she continued to hang with these people and even started doing drugs and drinking a lot. So the twins' upbringings and all the extracurricular activities were solely based off her and her late husband. Now in the year 2000, 25-year-old Nikki had come in contact with a 55-year-old man named Robert Head, who she had met while she was shopping at the mall. Robert was a pretty well-off truck driver who was in town at the moment, persuaded Nikki to go out on a date with him that same night. After whining and dining her for a while, the two of them got engaged and she eventually moved in with him at his gated community home in Conyers, Georgia, which was nearly 25 miles from Atlanta. With having a man like Robert that was basically taking care of everything, Nikki decided she wanted better for herself, so she enrolled herself in college to study fashion design. Now, it was said that Nikki was always in and out Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah's lives because she was still in her youth and she wanted to continue to enjoy what some would call their golden years. By 2007, Nikki was living a way better life than she was before. She had a good career, a supportive and good husband, and she lived in an area that was safe enough to raise the girls in. She felt that she was stable enough to raise her daughters now and give them all the luxury she wasn't able to afford before. So she decided that it was time for the twins to move in with her and her new boyfriend. Now at this time, Jazz and Taz were 13 years old and both were considered to be very sweet, intelligent, and happy little girls who was always engaged in their schoolwork. Neither twin had made less than an A in school and was on the path to having a very bright future. But it wasn't long before their behavior started to change for the worse. Now Tasmiyah was considered the oldest since she came out first, and she had more of a dominant and aggressive personality, while Jasmiyah was the quiet one. But when they both got together, their personalities matched whoever was giving off the most energy. It was stated that as soon as they moved in with their mother, everything started to go downhill for them, and their grades started to drop. They were no longer interested in being the good school kids and were skipping class to meet up with boys. And not the boys their age, it was the upperclassmen. And on top of this, they started dressing as if they were going to a club instead of school. Now Nikki was all too familiar with this type of behavior and became worried that the girls would make the same mistakes she did when she was younger, so she tried putting her foot down, but this didn't do nothing at all. The girls were resentful to their mother because at the time she was smoking marijuana and drinking. So they felt like, why should we follow the rules and you're doing all that? Then another report stated that while they were living with their great-grandmother, she told them that they didn't have to listen or obey their mother. So it seems like a lot of the disrespect they had towards Nikki came from years of manipulation. Then in January 2008, Nikki discovered that the girls had been playing hooky from school and going to their boyfriend's house. But on this particular day, it was just Taz. Now it was one thing for skipping school, but skipping school to go see older boys made Nikki very furious. Because after all her attempts to keep the girls on a straight and narrow, they were determined to do what they wanted to do. Nikki jumped in her car and sped straight to Tasmiyah's boyfriend's house to confront her. Once she got there, she burst through the doors and dragged Tasmiyah's little butt out that house and put her in the car. Embarrassed that she could do such a thing in front of her boyfriend, Jasmiyah started yelling and screaming at her mother, which caused a huge argument. Then in the midst of all the arguing, Taz opened up the passenger door and jumped out her moving car. Although she wasn't injured, this was a slap in the face to Nikki. She felt as though her daughter was telling her, no matter what you do or say, I'm gonna do whatever I please to do. As the years went on, their situations had gone from bad to worse. The twins built a routine to try to manipulate their mother. While one was being rebellious and aggressive, the other would pretend to care and act as if she was on her mother's side. Then on top of this, Taz started self-harming and would cut herself frequently. This definitely had an effect on Nikki's mental state because she didn't know what to do. Nikki felt as though her babies had been possessed by demons, but when her friends made suggestions for them to get help, she just couldn't believe that her daughters needed psychological help. On June 28, 2008, Nikki found that the girls had been skipping school again, which caused another verbal dispute, but this time it escalated into a full-on physical altercation. The twins were tired of hearing their mother's mouth and knew they could overpower her together, so they decided it was time to team up and attack her. But after they had been tussling for a while, Nikki managed to break away from them and ran in the room and locked it while she called the police. Once they arrived, the twins were just as calm as if nothing had ever happened. And once Nikki started explaining to the police what was going on, the twins refuted all her allegations and claimed that their mother just hated them and started the fight. But after a few minutes of talking with them, the police eventually de-escalated the situation, and Nikki and the twins came to agreement to call a truce, with everyone promising to go into their separate rooms to allow everything to calm down. Now, as they all went back in the house, the police officer decided to stay close because she had a bad feeling about the situation, which proved to be a good decision because only a few minutes after pulling off, she heard screaming from the direction of their home. Reports stated that while Nikki was walking to her room, Jasmiyah immediately walked in behind her and locked the door. Confronting her mother about calling the police on them, she started striking her over and over. Now here's the crazy part. Now while Taz and her mother were in the room fighting, Jasmiyah was banging on the door calling for her mother to open it so she could come in and help stop Jasmiyah from beating on her. But once Nikki opened that door, she joined in with her sister and started beating their mother up. Fortunately, Nikki managed to escape again, but this time she ran out the house screaming and flagging for the officer. Once the police got back to their house, he told the officer that not even minutes before she left, the twins came in her room and jumped on her again. The officer stated that the girls were acting just like they were before, claiming that Nikki was the one to start the attack. But after the officer examined the girls, she noticed that they didn't have any visible indication of being in a fight. But on the other hand, Nikki had scratches all over her face, neck, and chest. So the officer arrested the twins and took them into custody. A few days afterwards, Nikki and the twins sat before a juvenile court judge to determine what to do with the twins. Nikki told the judge the twins were out of control and needed help with them because she didn't know what else to do. But the twins just sat there and played the victim, telling the judge that their mother was a drug addict that didn't love or care for them anymore. The judge stood up and said, "This is a family that thrives off chaos, and everyone from the twins to the grandmother struggles to take their own responsibility for the family stress." So after listening to both parties, the judge decided that Nikki was not able to look after the girls anymore and sent them to live with their 81-year-old great-grandmother and to undergo counseling. Once the girls were back at their grandmother's place, they had all the freedom they were looking for and soon began hanging out at the projects where their boyfriends lived and started partying. Now, it was said that in those counseling sessions, the twins would go in on their mother every time they met, telling her how much they hated and never wanted to see or live with her again. But despite all this, Nikki's love for her baby girls was unbreakable. She told them how much she missed and loved them and continuously insisted that she wanted them home again, regardless of anything that happened in the past. Now, on December 12, 2009, almost a year and a half of living with their great-grandmother, they were back in court to discuss their progress. But just like everyone suspected, the girls were still skipping school and running wild. Della, who was the great-grandmother, took the stand and told the judge she could no longer care for them anymore, and something needed to be done to get them back on track. Then this is when Nikki stood up and begged to regain custody of her two children. But of course, this didn't sit right with the twins, so they made the claims that Nikki was still using drugs. So the judge issued her a drug test right then and there, and once the results came back, she was negative for every substance. She ended up winning the case and was rewarded full custody of her daughters again. But it was stated that as they were leaving the courthouse, Jasmiyah allegedly made the comment that if she had to come back to her house, she was going to end up killing her. But I'm not sure if this is true or false. Now, Nikki was excited that she was getting her babies back and wanted to show them that it wasn't any bad blood, so she threw them a homecoming party on January 9th, 2010. She tried to make sure everything was perfect. She decorated their rooms and even had her friends pitch in to make sure they had everything they needed for the party. But despite all that was done, they still wasn't pleased. It was stated that Tasmiyah was good at first and started engaging with people at the party, but once she seen her sister Jazz wasn't into it, it brought back all the bad energy they had before, and even get into a heated argument with their aunt that resulted in the party ending early. Nothing had changed with the twins at all. They both were still skipping school, trying to leave in the middle of the night to go out, and totally disregarded all their mother's rules. Nikki eventually had to start sleeping on the couch just to make sure that they couldn't leave without her knowing, but she also felt safer there so the girls couldn't corner her in the room if they decided to attack her again. Now, on January 13, 2010, the twins had woke up late and had missed their school bus again. This sent Nikki into a rage. Nikki and the girls were screaming and yelling at each other, and within minutes, things had escalated to a physical fight with kitchen utensils, pots, and pans being thrown at one another. But then one of the girls would do the unthinkable. She picked up a knife that was laying on the counter and lunged at her mother, slashing her arm wide open. In a panic, Nikki ran out the house to one of her neighbors to ask for help, but no one answered. Then Tasmiyah came outside showing sympathy, like they were sorry for what they had did, and calmly asked Nikki to come back inside so they could sort things out, and told her that everything was going to be okay. Believing that her daughters wouldn't do anything else to harm her, she walked back in, but as soon as she stepped foot in the house, one of the girls smashed a vase over her head, which knocked her down, and then sat on her and began stabbing her with a kitchen knife repeatedly, all over her body. Once she was too weak to move or fight back, the girls drug her into the bathroom and dumped her in the bathtub to let her die alone. Then after wiping their fingerprints off anything that could be considered evidence, the twins got dressed and headed to school as if it was a normal day. By the time they got back home from school, their mother had passed away due to her injuries. So they waited by a window until they saw a police car passing by, and then they ran out frantically, flagging the police officer down, telling him that they just got home from school and found their mother dead in the bathroom. The police officer stated that once he got in the house, he seen blood everywhere. He checked throughout all the house to make sure there was no one else there, but as he was checking the bathroom, he saw Nikki's lifeless body face down in a tub full of water. When the detective asked the twins what had happened, they both stated that when they left for school 7:30 that morning, their mother's door was locked and they didn't see her until they got back home from school. Now, the investigators suspected that the murder had to be done by someone she knew, since there wasn't any evidence of forceful entry inside the home. So the first person they went to was Robert Head, her boyfriend. Like I said before, Robert was a truck driver who was on the road traveling most of the time. So once they checked his GPS, they knew it couldn't be him. Then they found out Nikki had a side relationship with a guy named Joe Carter, who worked as a barber right next to her salon. The girls told the detective that they had heard Joe and Nikki arguing the previous night. Oh yeah, and this wasn't a secret relationship because Robert had given her permission to talk to other guys while he was on the road so she wouldn't get lonely. I'm not sure what that's about, but anyway. Once they saw that he didn't have any marks of struggle on his body and passed the polygraph test, his name was cleared. Now, after digging a little bit, the investigators learned that the family had some troubling past. So they brought Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah in for questioning and noticed that both of them were wearing gloves. They asked them to remove the gloves, then they saw what they needed to see. Their hands and arms were riddled with scratch marks, cuts, and even bite marks. The twins claimed that the scratches and cuts they had on their body was just from a fight they had with each other earlier, and the bite marks was something they did to themselves as a nervous habit. Then on top of that, they told the detectives that they had arrived at school on time that day. But once they checked the surveillance camera at a nearby store, they saw that the girls were there at 10 a.m. Now, due to the lack of evidence and proof, they ended up releasing the twins so they could go back and stay with their great-grandmother. Now, this part made me a little bit upset if it was true. It was said that at the funeral, the brother stated that the twins pulled up with their older boyfriends, and as the funeral service was going on, they sat beside the casket laughing and giggling the whole time with no emotions from the loss of their mother. Now, as the weeks went on, the girls thought they were in the clear, but they just didn't know in the background the investigators were grabbing as much evidence as possible to take them down. On May of 2010, their last day of school, Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah Whitehead were arrested and was charged with murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a knife in commission of a crime. Once they were in the police custody, the twins told the investigators that they wished they would have told the truth the first time because they claimed that their actions were provoked by their mother's physical abuse. But after the forensic specialist examined the bite marks on the girls and that mold from Nikki's teeth, the indentation was a perfect match. Then to seal the deal, they found a piece of hair stuck in Nikki's teeth. After they ran a DNA test, it was determined that the twins were surely their mother's murderer. Nikki Whitehead's autopsy showed that the twins had stabbed her over 50 times, almost completely severing her spinal cord. Then on a taped confession, the twins admitted that they had smashed her head in with a pot and strangled her. In 2014, Jasmiyah Tasmiyah Whitehead pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter, making false statements, and possession of a knife during a crime, and both were sentenced to 30 years in prison. Jasmiyah was sent to Pulaski State Prison, and Jasmiyah was sent to Arendelle State Prison, which are both in the state of Georgia. Today, the Whitehead twins are 28 years old and will be eligible for parole in 18 more years. All right, family, that will bring us to an end, and all I can say is wow. The hate they have for their mother seems like something straight out of a horror fiction movie. For two little girls to do something like this to their mother, then on top of that, laugh and giggle at her funeral. Seems like they were either complete sociopaths or full-on psychopaths. But regardless of any of that, I can't even imagine how angry and heartbroken Nikki's family felt after experiencing such a thing. But y'all let me know down in the comments what y'all think of this story. Do y'all believe the twins' claim of abuse, or do you believe they were just plain evil? Thank you guys so much for watching and supporting this channel. And if you haven't already, go ahead and do that thing I said at the beginning. Hit that like, subscribe, and turn the notification bell on for all new content. I really hate having to say that, but you know. Y'all go have a wonderful day or weekend or whatever it is you're gonna do. Just make sure it's wonderful. And until next time, stay mysterious, my friends.